Hello there. You are listening to the Girl Talk Podcast, brought to you by the Stoner Group at UBS Financial. My name is Carol.
This is Alicia.
I'm Tricia.
And we're so glad that you are here today. Today we're tackling an interesting topic. This one actually was the result of a text message between me and Tricia.
Yep.
And I said, I don't even remember what I said.
Well, you were just like, I think I'm going to write a book. I
Yeah.
think I'm going to write a book, and
Which
I'm
is
going to call
suddenly a
it.
joke.
I would love
Yeah.
to read a Carol Davis
no.
book.
Oh, yes. You should, number one. And number two, I said that is the best title ever. Tell the
It's
title.
called After the Casserole.
Oh, that's great.
Because Tricia and I both have been going through some grieving process, and it's been a great bonding time for she and I to just kind of talk through some things. But it has been, let's see, in a couple of weeks, it'll be the anniversary of my dad's passing, and Father's Day and all that. It's all around the same time. And you know what I'm finding? I'm finding that people expect you to be moved on. Like,
It's interesting.
after the
Moved
casseroles stop, after the meals stop, after the funeral's over, people are like, okay, they go back to their regularly scheduled life, and they expect you to do the same. Now, I'll say this about not only actual physical grief when losing a family member or friend, but I say this about grieving in general, whether it's a marriage or a long-held relationship or a friendship, loss of
Career.
any career, loss of
yeah,
any
that's a good one
kind.
too.
Loss of any kind, it is similar in that after the initial event, people tend to forget about it and go back. And I just would like to challenge people to think about those times as not. I mean, Tricia and I had a great conversation yesterday about it because I was really struggling. And we're at a year, and I said I feel like I ought to be doing better than I am. And I even confessed to her one day right after her mom passed that I said you're doing so much better than me, and it's been so much more time for me. And I just bawled.
And do you remember what I told you?
Yes.
Yeah. I said, number one, there's no comparison in grief. But number two, I was in the middle of shock.
Yeah.
And it was a week after that or so that I started
Right.
to go downhill. And that's the thing about grief. You cannot explain it. You can't map it out. You can't prepare for it because you don't know. You take a turn and then the whole landscape changes.
Yeah.
You don't know what you're going to be dealing with one day to the next. And so you can't move on.
Right.
You can't get over it because it's constantly changing. And your reactions are going to be constantly changing. And we have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
There's no wrong way to grieve.
Yeah.
And I think we never know how people are feeling.
Yeah.
It may look like someone's doing great, but inside they're crumbling, or maybe they hold it together all day at work or school or wherever, and then they go home and fall apart.
Yeah. Well,
Yes.
I have the perfect example. Yes, and
You get in
amen.
your safe place.
Yes and amen.
Yeah, we had Wednesday night, we had a baptism at our church, and I made a mistake of sitting on the front row, which was my first mistake. I never do that, but I sat on the front row, of course, and they start baptizing people. Well, that's such an emotional thing for me.
Yeah, it is. I
always
know.
cry.
I always cry.
Always.
Beautiful.
But
Yes.
it was like a dam broke in me. Like I could not stop crying. Like no matter how hard I tried, people were looking at me like, I love listening to you on the radio. Didn't know you were.
Are you okay?
Yeah, exactly. Nobody asked if
Didn't know
I was
you got
okay.
so emotional about baptism.
Yeah, nobody asked if I was okay. Everybody just kind of was looking at me like, okie dokie, you know.
Yeah.
And I think we expect ourselves to, and Trish and I have shared this many times. There's no back to normal. There's no, because people will often say, well, you know, life goes on. No, it really doesn't. You don't move on. You move forward.
Yes.
I think that was such a powerful statement because I'd never heard anybody put words to it like you had. One thing that I've been doing, I have a good friend who lost her teenage son in a car accident several years ago. And one of the things that I have committed to do, and I felt the Lord impressed upon my heart when that happened, was to put a marker in my calendar. And every year around the time of his death, I send her flowers. And just say,
great.
I'm remembering you, and I love you, and I want you to know that I know this day's hard for you.
Well, and I think for I would imagine for her, it's probably like, and the memory is how her son can live on.
Oh, yeah.
The fact that other people remember, because you don't want your child's life to be forgotten.
Right.
Because you're never going to forget. So the fact that someone else would remember every year, it's got to be very powerful and meaningful.
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because that's the thing. I think people are scared to bring it up because they don't know, is it going to trigger you to be upset?
Right.
Or, but But I've been told by people who've lost people, and I'm here living it now, that we want to talk about the people we've lost. It's a way of having them with us and remembering the good things, even remembering some of the hard things. It still matters, and it still is healing to talk about them. Don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, yeah. My dad was quite a jokester, and so I love telling stories about. I mean, he was. I don't know how he didn't get arrested. We do. We have quotes for days, and he was so honest. Like, it was just hysterically funny. Just one quick example. He was in the nursing home for a while as he was rehabbing during one of his falls, and he heard this other man that he knew was in the same nursing facility, and so he was going to go down the hall and talk to him, and he did, and he came back, and I said, "Dad, did you see your friend?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, "How's he doing?" He said, "Well, I'd heard he lost his marbles, so I just asked him." I said, "Wait, you asked him if he'd lost it?" He said, "Yeah, I heard he." He said, "I just went up to him and said, 'Hey, heard you lost your marbles.'" And so that just brings so much joy to my heart because I have never known anybody who can make me laugh as hard as my daddy can make me laugh.
Yes.
And so remembering those times is precious. But even I will say this, even though personal grief is harder, I will say that one of the most grieving times in my life was at the death of my marriage.
Yes.
That was also a deeply grieving time. Somebody gave me a book called A Grace Disguised by Jerry Sitzer, I believe. And one of the things he said in that book, and I was like very confused why somebody gave me that book. I was going through a divorce, and it wasn't like a death, but in a lot of ways it was very similar, and it was a grief that I didn't understand at the time. So I was so thankful that my friend Amy gave me that book. But he said this very powerful statement. He said, "I learned that the dark did not go away by me avoiding it, but by running straight into it."
Wow. That's hard, though. It's,
It is hard, but you get through it quicker if you run into it.
I want to share a technique that a friend of mine shared with me, and you're right, Carol. You don't get through it by running away from it. You have to go through it. It's a process. God will He'll walk with you in it. He will. I've lived that recently, but it is hard. And my friend is a therapist. Her name's Chris. And she and I got together just socially, but we ended up talking about what had happened with my parents. And I was telling her that, like, I'm losing my temper at my kids. I'm crying in staff meetings at work. I'm lying on the bed and can't get up. Like, I'm doing all these weird things. And she said, here's something that you might consider. Schedule a time of grief. Every day or every other day, whatever you need. Go ahead and set aside a little bit of time every day to feel the feeling, to go through it, not run away from it, but go through it and experience the emotions in a safe place by yourself. Yeah. And that way you're going to be less apt to spill out in various ways. Right. And it's healing. It can heal, and God will be with you in it. But that has been a very powerful thing that has helped me process.
That's great. I had heard something similar. When you have a lot of emotions, eventually it's like a grenade. If you don't let them out slowly or deal with them, the grenade is going to explode at some point, and it's going to pour out and spill out. And I love that idea of it seems kind of hard to schedule it. Let me schedule time to be sad. But I think if you can get alone and just think about what you're going through, it will just naturally kind of come out. And then you'll be in your own private space and it's comfortable. But I don't like feeling those feelings. So a lot of times I try to suppress things, even if I'm by myself. I don't like to cry. I hate crying.
I mean, I think there's some of that in all of us.
Oh, sure.
But I know after if I'm going through something hard and I do cry, I feel better later. Yeah. So because I think it may have to be, it's coming out.
Yeah, because you want to feel strong. You want
it to or not.
Yes.
You don't want everybody to think you got it all together.
Yeah, you don't want to be weak and
y'all know I'm a creative from the word go. And so I have to find creative ways to process all that. And I realized the other day that I have not written a word in my personal journal since 2 years from when my dad got sick.
Wow.
Not a word. Not a word.
Oh, wow. That's powerful.
I know.
Yeah.
And so this weekend.
Surprising, too.
It is very surprising. This weekend, what we had planned is kind of falling apart. And, I was like, I think I'm going to sit down and write this weekend in my personal, how I'm feeling and getting in touch with that, because I think I need to avoid the grenade going off, as you mentioned, because that happened to me Wednesday night. You're like, it's good to see you too. And I just love watermelon bubble gum. Everything was making me cry, and I couldn't get it back together. And I have a middle schooler, and that was like totally embarrassing her. She's like, "Yeah, my mom's a nut job over there. Can't get it together." But I think if you're a creative person and you like to write, or you like to paint, or you like to whatever creative outlet you have, sing, dance, there are.
I think even if you write it and throw it away,
sure,
getting it out. That's just for me. That writing stuff like that down always helps. It always helps. And if you're mad at something and you want to write it down, you can just tear it up and you'll feel even better.
Yeah. Well, I think once we get it out of our heads and onto a piece of paper, we can deal with it then.
Yeah.
Yes.
But just acting like it's going to go away.
I also find sometimes if you write it, or even talking to somebody about it, but if you don't feel like you can talk to anybody about it, if you write and you just keep writing what's on your mind.
Yeah.
You'll realize things that maybe you didn't know and your subconscious was happening. And then you're like, oh, wow, I really am affected by this one situation or what's going on, or, whatever you're thinking about. I think it just helps you realize it more.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so powerful. I want to say one thing to you listening. You haven't lost someone. But or lost something powerful, like what we're talking about, but you love someone who has. I just want you to know that I think we can all recognize that is a hard position to be in. That you love the person who's struggling and you don't know how to help. You don't know what to say. There are no right words. You're not failing at supporting them. You just keep doing what you're doing and understand that that we appreciate you and we understand that it's not easy to be in that position until you've lost someone primary, or lost a career, or lost a marriage, or lost something. So you won't know what to say, and that's okay. Just your presence we appreciate. And I just want you to know that I recognize that, and we recognize that.
Yeah, and I think that is one of the most powerful things I want you to hear today, that the ministry of presence is the most powerful ministry of all. Because most of us know inside of our head the truth. Now, there will be the time where we need to hear the truth. And I think you'll know when to share that. But sometimes it's just sitting with you.
Yeah.
I remember my friend Marla in the days after her son passed away in the car accident. She kept asking me why. And I felt so incredibly helpless because I couldn't give her a why. And I finally said, even if we knew why, would it be enough?
Right.
Right. And I think when you think of questions that way, there will never be an answer that you'll be, oh, okay. Well,
that settles it.
My marriage fell apart because, there was a greater... There won't ever be a day where an answer will be sufficient to heal that ache in your heart.
Something else I've observed in the last few years overseeing friends go through different things is that people seem to move on, like a marriage either through divorce or death, and the person gets remarried and you're like, wow, they're completely healed and everything is wonderful now. Or someone who's lost a child and they have a new baby. And you're like, wow, great, they have someone new to love. It never takes away the pain of what they lost. And even though, like, if someone lost a spouse and then they remarry and they're fully in love and they love this new person, they're still grieving over the love that they did lose. And that's been a realization for me, just to see some people I know that have done that, and they've found a way to move forward, and they've got loving relationships that understand that they still need to grieve what they lost.
Absolutely.
It doesn't end.
No.
Yeah.
And I think we all, there are different stages to grief. And I remember our friend Leah told me this. She's like, grief is not a checklist. How we wish it was, oh, you're in denial now. Check.
Right.
Okay, now you're fully in the feeling part of it. It's not linear. It's not something
up and down and
it's all over the map. And there are days that you're going to struggle, and there are going to be special days that nobody even knows about. birthdays or anniversaries or days like that. And that's when the ministry of presence is just, I think you said this to me, Tricia. You said, I love you however you come.
Yeah. How you are and where you are.
Yeah.
And there will be days of joy, and that's okay too.
Yeah.
I had to be reassured of that.
Yeah.
It's okay to have a day that you smile and laugh. It doesn't mean, you stop loving the person that's gone or the situation that's gone. So that is okay too.
Yeah.
That's important.
It is. Because I remember one day we just laughed. We just laughed really hard, and it was fun. And but it didn't take away that sting. And it doesn't, that's not disrespectful.
Right.
Yeah. So we are just day by day learning how to do this thing too, but we're so excited that you're along for this journey. If you have questions or if you have comments, we would love to hear from you. You can always email us at girltalk@thelightfm.org. Remember that after the casseroles come out of the freezer and they're all cooked up and done, the journey is just beginning. Let us know how we can help you. Once again, girltalk@thelightfm.org. Thank you to the Stoner Group at UBS Financial. We'll see you next time when we gather around these microphones for the Girl Talk podcast.